So, hello and welcome to the EmpowerMe Team 3.0 review session for always assume full responsibility for yourself. I'm hoping that as you guys took a look at the content, that it was both uh, really kind of evident that it makes sense, but forced you to really kind of look at maybe where you found yourself in certain situations, or even maybe where you are today. And then as we kind of get together and talk it through, how do you kind of use this thought, if you will, assuming full responsibility for yourself, as a powerful tool to help move you through both your career and your life? So I'm super excited to hang with you guys today. Um, well, let's just get started, right? So when you saw this topic come up in your playbook, what were some of your initial thoughts?
Something I gotta work on.
What? Already? Yeah. What? So, when you say something I got to work on, what did you see when you saw that? What did it say to you?
I don't know, it's hard to explain. I feel like I can think it in my head, but just trying, well, especially with calls, assuming responsibility at the beginning of the call. That's one of the things that I've been kind of trying to work on too, with positioning and things. So that's kind of what it made me think of.
Okay, so kind of from what you do on a daily basis about assuming
Right.
that kind of ownership.
Right. Yeah. Like owning the situation myself.
All right, I like that. Um, so that was your starting point, right? You're like, okay,
Right.
okay, all right, cool beans. I'm going to come back to you on this, all right?
All right.
It's because we love you. What? So when you guys saw it, like you said, okay, assume full responsibility. What was like that first reaction? That first kind of
For me, it was like, "Oh, man, how is this gonna be different than any of the other times that I've made a goal? Like, how am I gonna make it really happen this time?"
mm,
Because so many times I have set goals and I have the best intentions, and then I don't have something trips up. And the reality is, you start seeing that holding yourself accountable is for the little things and the big things, like having that spaghetti night, making your life easier. What are the obstacles that are going to trip you up on a daily basis? Whether it's your schedule of how you get up in the morning and changing your routine to, putting off your laundry, procrastinating, right? Putting off your laundry till Saturday. So you spend all of Saturday or most of Saturday doing laundry when you really could have done a load, each night. So finding those systems, the more that you can make some of those small things that you think really aren't a big deal into a system that actually works for you. I feel that I really feel that then I am in a better place to actually fulfill my bigger goals. And that comes down to even with work too, we always are replaying, our calls and how we could approach something and learning to be okay with, well, I did the best. I looked for, I had the mindset of the best possible outcome. I went forward with that call with the best possible outcome. There can be takeaways from it, but also then how you approach other calls. And I found that with EmpowerMe, we've really developed quite a bit of optimism and we've been inspired so much so that people I've never spoken to in the hallway will talk to me, right? Because we become the more we're open to those opportunities and changes, things come about before us. And that's something that I've been very grateful for as we've gone on this journey and realizing that your big goal needs those little goals to get you there. And that can be,
yeah,
we're doing now. So I don't feel as hindered that it's not achievable. Whereas before I used to,
Right.
and those excuses, what I can, I have family obligations, I have, household things that I really should be doing. Once I get my life into order, then I will go and start doing some schooling. The job is really hard and I get tired and
mm,
then I really don't have the energy to do school, and taking away those excuses and being like, if I can make the rest of my life easier, then it's possible.
sure,
So
Right.
sure.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
I really love that. Thank you. I'm
Mm,
going to come
yeah.
back to. There's something within that what you shared that I think we would want to spend some time on, and that was when you said system. So I'm not going to spend time on it right now, but yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if my eyebrows move. Wait, here's a test. Yeah, okay. So I think my eyebrows move because I just that resonated with me. So let's y'all hold me accountable. Let's talk about that. Miss Donna, for you.
Yeah, for me, it was, the feelings, like, sometimes when you're on a call, I think I take it personal, not too personal, but
Mhm.
I do, and when they're crying or they're upset, and then I try to do what I can to
Mhm.
help them get through it, and then I feel like bad afterwards, you know what I mean? It's like I gotta separate how do I wanna say that? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm helping the customer, but I'm also feeling what they feel, and I'm probably doing more than I should, and I should separate the feelings. Does that
Right,
make
it's hard to
sense?
take the emotion out of it.
It is, because they're, like they're upset because, they've lost a loved one. "Oh, you've never lost a loved one, blah, blah, blah." And I'll be like, "Well, actually, I did. I lost my
Right,
mom 2
yeah.
years ago." You know what I mean? And they're like, "Oh, oh,
Right.
I'm sorry," and it's like, "Hey, we're all in the same boat." And I usually tell my customers, it's like, "We're all in a jar of pickles. We're just different pickles." And
Yeah, I like that.
and usually they'll giggle. They'll be like, "Oh my god, I love that saying." She's like, "You're right, because we all are in the same world. We're just different pickles." So they kinda like that little thing, but it's sometimes just getting my feelings, trying to keep my feelings out of the situation is
Mm.
what's hard for me.
So is it say would it be fair to say like for you there's this the responsibility to kind of govern or kind of maintain some separation
Right,
and
maintaining separation, yeah.
so all right well I want to come back to that too. I think that's a really interesting dichotomy. Um,
Good one, because it's boundaries.
right, it's
It
about
is.
boundaries and
Struggle with that at one point or another.
yeah,
Mhm,
and then
mhm,
then it's not just boundaries. It's then it
Mm,
gets about well, why did that happen? Or why
right.
do I keep letting
exactly,
myself slide
right.
into this like the feels?
Mhm.
So yeah, so let's talk about it from that perspective. Um, Around when I said why did that happen, right? So let's take a
Mhm.
hey, Miss Patricia, it's good to see you.
Hey.
We're talking about assume full responsibility and kind of really was gauging from everyone when you saw that one roll up in the playbook. What was your first blush? What was that first take like? This is topic number three. What was your take when you saw that, Miss Patricia?
For me, this has been something that's been hard for me to do. So, I mean, it's like, I mean, I can take full, or I feel like I do it, but I don't know if I'm doing it in the right way, I guess is how I
Okay.
would say it. Because I take full responsibility for my career, my development. It's 95% me. I can't expect anybody else to be able to go out there and do anything for me because if I'm not willing to do it for myself.
Right.
So what's the other 5%? The part where you say you still have to work on it.
Is I don't know. Honestly, I think it's I'm like I said, I have no communication skills. So it's learning those communication skills to be able to take and actually build myself up and portray myself as someone that is willing to take the responsibility. I don't and is serious about what I'm doing.
No, I love that. So first and foremost, it's like everybody hit on some facet of this topic. And if you read the two articles, I think I had tried to share with y'all, don't be thrown that it's really bizarre, but the two article titles seem like they're the same title. But there's one is really kind of high level, and the other one really, challenges you to kind of consider some things. Um, but there was a phrase about when it says, it just happens, right? I think that's what we had heard from Miss Donna, and I wanted to just kind of gauge the group on that. So, is it a fair statement to say sometimes stuff happens, right? Because we're recorded, I can't say shit happens. All right, I did. I just said it. But that's an incomplete sentence because what we're saying is happens to me, right? No, and I want to explore that with you guys, right? Because I think you guys are looking at it and you're kind of really being um, really, like panoramic vision. Here's that topic read. Here's kind of where I found myself. I mean, you were like, hey, I got a system. I've got some things in place, but there's these pockets, there's these things. But let's get right down to that granular piece around like, do you ever get affected when no matter how much your intention on your goals, right? You set those goals, or the hard work that you're doing on your career, and it shit doesn't work out, right? Something happened. Something like happened. It wasn't just like it didn't work. Like, hey, I'm still doing the same thing I did yesterday and the day before. Nothing happened. I'm just not at my goal. Or your story is, oh no, I've been busting my tail, and an opportunity came up, and at the end of the day, I was not in that decision, or I was as a result of that decision, I did not achieve my objective, my goal, my desire. And that's where the shit happens moment happens, right? Has that ever happened to you? Is it happened to you recently? Yes, we've had a couple, right? I don't want anybody to tell me any like terrible story, but in that moment, where were you as far as responsibility? Like, if we were being honest, what side of
I
that?
never take responsibility for.
Right. It's hard to you always
It's
want to be
somebody
like, well,
else's
this
fault.
happened because of
Yeah,
this, not
yeah.
that you could have done something better. Like,
Right,
it's hard to take that responsibility.
right. But why is that? Like, walk me through again. If it's happened to you, and I respect your privacy, but I want to, because I think we're all going to be like, preach, right? Someone's going to tell some part of an event, and we're all going to be like Miss Donna, we're going to be like, I feel this. There's no boundaries. I'm in with you, but I want us to say the words out loud. So shit happened to you. Where were you from that moment and that real microcosm that it just happened to you within 12 hours?
Well, it's just discouraging too. So it's like easier to put the blame on something else versus that you could have done something differently.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a coping mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes then the crutch that you go forward.
Right.
Because that circle when the circle of accountability never comes back to you, it's also hard for you then to start up from that and say, well, I need self-care. I need to recognize that when my body is injured, I need to hold myself accountable to do the physical therapy that I need to do.
Mm.
And that step, though that wasn't part of my goal to get from point A to point B, if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't make those bigger goals happen as easily.
Right.
And that's what happens is we so much easier it's so much easier to just say, oh well, sometimes just things happen, and but then you lose sight of your bigger goal. And I think it's okay to, at that moment, if you can kind of acknowledge yourself in that situation and why you're there, you can regain some of that footing with saying, okay, my goal has slightly changed, but that doesn't mean that I can't still integrate those mindsets that I want to have to still get to the goal. I think the more that we can do that, we will start, achieving more of the mini goals. And it's okay that we had to add 2 or 3 more in before we get to, our big goal that we wanted,
I'm
because
with
we're
you.
still headed with movement. So,
I think my biggest issue is when I try to go into something, I'm trying to go into it with 100%. Like even with the current project that I'm on, I'm putting 100% into it. I'm keeping in contact with anybody that can keep me within the project. So I constantly feel like I've got this cloud over my head and something is going to drop, it's going to end. And then I'm going to be like, oh my God, and, but I have started to within the last few years start asking the questions after something happens of what could I have done different? Was there something I could have changed in order to be able to gain a better understanding and grow the whatever happened, even if in my head I'm sitting there going, though they didn't do it, they didn't let me, they hurt me, I'm still trying to figure out what I can do better.
I like that too. I like that there's part of that kind of that in the moment when stuff happens, we are factoring in kind of what we brought in, and we're seeing that like, hey, I was 100% invested. I've held myself to this really kind of great standard, um, for what? you know, and yeah, hey, you got to step back and say, okay, well, what could I have done better? But if I'm being honest, in kind of in that moment when I talked about 12 hours, and I'm going to share a redism with you in a minute. I don't know if it's going to be cool enough to take off, but sometimes that can be that can hurt a little bit. You might say, like, so I'll share with you. I had a few months ago, I had an opportunity to interview for a senior manager position, and I had done a whole year's worth of work within my department, like very intentional, strategic work to be the first FLDC non-promoted to get an opportunity to be a senior manager. And I had earned the right to apply, and I went through the interview process. And I did not get the position. I mean, you're all shocked, right? Because here I am, still y'all's OEM. And there was conflict because, man, I wanted that. I mean, I can't express to you guys really clearly and specifically how much I wanted that, and how it was what we call rational goal. It was a rational goal for me because I had thought about it. I figured out what I needed to do. I mean, I was just in all the right places and did all the right things. So the other side of my brain, right, there was the emotional red that connected to my customer down the thing. Like, I'm like, oh, I need to go and break something. I mean, I need to go and snap some pencils. And the other side's like, you know, like this, now red, you know, that you probably could have done a better job. Yeah, I didn't know if I was ready for that, right? I felt like that would almost contribute to the self-defeating feeling I was having. And I say this to you because I don't know if that's how it happens for all of us, but I'd like to think that I'm normal in that way. So here's what I'm going to put out to you. I want to get your take on it. Well, so Red has got his own little process, and it's called the 222, right? So it's something big, right? I worked my tail off. I showed up to the interview, and they were like, you know what? We want contestant number 3. I give myself the grace to really be pissed off for 2 hours. Like, don't go talk to anybody because I'm probably not going to see the best part of me. But within that 2 hours, I need to find space. I need to find some time because, oh, damn it, I'm mad. I'm really mad. I'm mad at everybody. I feel like I've been robbed. I go through all of the emotions, whether um, they're appropriate or not. And then over the next 2 days, I start to slowly say, well, what parts of this were my responsibility? Because you know what? I still think they made a really shitty decision, and I think that I'm the victim here. But then I allow myself to vacillate and go, well, Red, if you're being totally honest with yourself, was that your best interview you ever gave? And if I'm lying to myself, I know. So then I give myself 2 days to work through it, and then the next 2 months, put a plan together so that doesn't happen again. And usually it happens before 60 days, but life is crazy. So I don't give myself impossible deadlines. But I felt that allowed me to be both victim because my amygdala, my emotional side, is a very powerful being in the head of Red Sharples. But also allows me to kind of make those steps because I always feel like there is a tendency sometimes when we go through all this self growth, this self development, that it can get a little preachy. You'll be like, no, I don't know anybody in my entire world that just talks like this article talks every moment of every day. which can cause a disassociation. So I try to just say, well, what in reality, you're going to have a bad hair day, Red. Why not have it? But it's in a block. You get to kind of go and have all the ice cream you want for 2 hours, and then for 2 days, and then 2 months. So I share that with you. What's your take on that? What did you hear?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Cool.
I like that.
All right.
I do too. And you're allowing yourself to be the different identities because you identified with that new role and saw yourself in it, went through the steps, and genuinely, of your heart of hearts, saw yourself there. And so when things don't go your way, to be able to identify and see your identity through all your emotions really allows you to filter through it and take the positive from it.
I
Take
feel that.
the good and bad.
Yeah, I feel that, and I feel like this topic. So I was talking to you guys about this topic. Why it intrigues me is because on the surface, it's like you really can't mount an argument against it. I haven't had anybody go, Red, let me tell you why it's the surest way to the top is to blame everybody, right? Uh, no one's really convinced me yet. So when you see an article like that, you're like, yeah, I can't argue against the logic, taking full responsibility of myself. But in practice, it's tough. And then again, when we set these goals, because you guys are hungry, you want change, you're willing to work for the change that you want, well then it can get rigid because you'll be like, I had this moment where I might have called Red a bad name. Ah, you know what? I need to take, and you take more than the 222, right? So I always think it's good to kind of look at it as this is the most probably human of all the things we're going to talk about in empowerment. This is the one that really brings the humanity in you out. And I say, be gracious with that. Be gracious and say, well, I'm not going to be perfect at that. It depending on the severity of that disappointment of that, event that may involve you. And again, too, it's not really about taking 100% responsibility for all of the things that happen in the event or the persons that might be involved. It really is what was the one thing that you had control over, which would hopefully would be yourself, right? So, so talk to me about. So you've got this decision. What would be some of those signs that you might look for to say, I'm still in this kind of maybe victim side of the equation. What were some things that you can put into place? So we're going now to your system, right? We're going to your system that you shared earlier, and I hope you know I'm looking right at you. What are some of those things where you might look for in you to say, you know what? I don't think I'm taking full responsibility, and here's why. What would you point to? And I'm going to close my door. I'm back.
Looking at my system as a whole as my career at T-Mobile, I didn't take responsibility for showing to show an interest that other people would know that I had an interest to, take on different roles. Um, so that in itself, assuming that people will know what you want or where you're going to best fit, definitely has been something that is why I'm, still in the seat, taking calls, which there's nothing wrong with that. And you develop within that. But as you start seeing that you can change your outlooks and change your outcomes, it can change too. For me, from a system standpoint, it wasn't good enough just to be like, okay, I can get up, take a shower, have my stuff ready, and be out the door by such and such time. It's what are the other things that I really should be doing at the beginning of my day, to make it so that I have a more productive morning. So when I go in, I already feel not only alert, but also ready to be that power force of myself, in that call and, whatever the call is. And also start noticing what others are bringing to the table, which I was never noticing what others were bringing to the table, on my teams. And that's one of the ways that you learn too,
Mhm.
is from others that have, that vigor in them. It's like I didn't have that. So that's why they didn't see it.
Nice. I gotcha. I like that.
Yeah.
What other types of things you guys would think would be like, hey, if if I notice myself X, it's most likely that I have not embraced full responsibility or I'm struggling with assuming full responsibility. What were some things that you guys um, might have already kind of established?
For me, I need to get myself out of the mindset of just because I've been with T-Mobile so long, why is it that they're not choosing me for something? Like seeing somebody that has just started, in 6 months into a position and getting a position before I have has been one of the biggest drawbacks for me because it puts this negative attitude that not only am I getting for myself, but other people can see that just from my reactions to any feedback or something like that. Like, I've got to take the feedback and what's happening as a good thing for me to grow on, not that it's something that's being done against me.
Okay. So I like that. It makes me think of some questions. Can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah. So you said I gotta get out of the mindset. So are you saying and sharing with us that you're not quite there yet?
I think sometimes I'm not. It depends on the situation, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, that there are times that I do sit there and say to myself, you know what? I've been with T-Mobile so long. Why is it so hard for me to get to the next level? Like why am I not there? And but I think and I want to say going and I love the fact that the strength stuff was before this is because looking at the strength stuff, I wasn't playing to anything that was my strengths through this time period. So that's why. Well, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why is that if you're not doing that, you're not going to get anywhere. So, I mean, that in itself was enough eye opening to be able to help out. And but it's just making sure that I keep myself on that mental level that if something happens to change
Yeah.
where my goal is, that I can't sit there and say, well, wait a minute, why if this, why if I've been, why and just try to grow from it.
No, I hear you. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think both of what you guys shared are great pieces around your system and understanding the import and impact of having this kind of awareness. Um, I think so. Like your tell to yourself, I guess, is um, it still sounds like it's and after the fact. And what I wanted to kind of explore is when you're maybe in the process when so somebody gets an opportunity, Patricia, you're like, well, gall darn it, that person's seniority is a single digit for Christ's sakes. So then that's the moment, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't ask the why. You first have to say to yourself, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Like, okay, that thought just manifested itself, or in my case, came out of my mouth, right?
Hmm.
I think that for us, we want to talk about um, those types of things as well. In the moment, can you detach and have a conversation with yourself? Can you refer to yourself by your given name, right? Red, you're talking right now to Greg Zimba, and you know that you're setting this story up so that there's still a little bit of they did that to you, Red. Why are you doing that? And
Hmm.
don't lie to me, Red. Why are you doing that? And then I would say, well, I just feel like it's not my fault. And then from there, the practicality pieces. Well,
Right.
how long do you need to do that? Because while you're here, you're not going there, right? And I think we talked about momentum, right? Moving forward.
Mhm.
So I love, because I think your self awareness is kicked in. You're looking at what's happening and you're like, why? But it sounded almost rhetorical, as if you weren't expecting an answer or an answer has yet to be provided to you, right? Um, and so then the danger is so you have nothing to move forward on other than to just go, well, guess I'll just keep being amazing. But so part of this exercise is to kind of, before you get there, is to first say, well, if I'm being honest, why did I ask that question? Right? Because is it a question that's born out of frustration, which is
Mhm.
reasonable, or is it a question that you're asking from a pragmatic? Well, I'm looking for feedback, which I happen to know that that is not a stellar uh, piece for the folks that we work with in delivering clear and concise feedback. Right? That's why I know that. Yes, ma'am. Jump in.
Oh, I was just gonna say, kudos to us for applying to Empower Me because I've seen those emails all these years and I didn't apply. And that in itself was I feel is a huge step for me
Mm,
and everyone that did that.
yeah.
And then being here is a secondary huge step. So much so that a parallel is like going to when we have the education tables when the colleges come, right? I'd gone to them, I'd taken pamphlets, but I never talked to the people that worked for the different companies. And I did this time. So it's like sometimes what we think we're going to get out of something
Mm,
may have a much bigger goal, but that step was a huge step for me to talk to each one and know what programs they actually had and start seeing myself in a different way than just going and grabbing the paperwork and be like, I really should do this. This would be the right thing. T-Mobile's paying it. So I think that can parallel to a lot of other things
yeah.
that we hold ourselves back from because we didn't take the chance.
I agree. I think that's what I want us to start exploring is this is that those spaces in between, right? From I'm being affected by some recent outcome where I didn't come out on top, right? And this is devastating, and it's definitely something that impacts me both academically and emotionally. And then trying to say, okay, well, what does it sound like? What should it look like as I'm in this raw emotional state, frustration state, irritation state? What should I be saying to myself um, as I start to kind of decide how I move? And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because to name this point is somewhere as you start practicing it over and over again, that space does get smaller and smaller, and you fill that space with action. You're doing something. You're going to move forward. You're going to be like, well, you know what? I'll go over and I'll talk to somebody that I haven't talked to before because all the people I'm talking to right now are all kind of, no one's lined up. I'm not getting the same feedback. I'm not getting the same like really good stuff that I can possibly course correct with. Maybe I got to go out farther. And I would have never done that. I'd have never done that. But I started having this conversation with myself, right? Um, and again, that's why I love Patricia, your what you shared so much because I think it's just so reflective of what all of us are currently working, right? We're working our asses off. We want to be seen. We want to be acknowledged for the effort, and we want to leverage that as we continue to grow. And then when things don't work out, no one sat down with us and said, "Well, how do you work through that?" We I think we basically say "Suck it up, Buttercup," you know, um, in a manner of speaking. So I really love that. So what I wanted to kind of put out there to you is start that process of developing your own self-talk and self-assessment. Being both gracious to give yourself time to stay in the raw feels because you cannot deny yourself. Now, if you do that, you're gonna it'll find a way. It'll come out. You'll yell at somebody at the bud shop and say, but give yourself that space, but set a parameter like Red's 2. Right? You got 2 hours to be insufferable, Red. Just don't do it to people you love, right? But man, I got to, because if I try to suppress it, it'll manifest itself somewhere else. But then in the next 2 days, I start analyzing like I wake up first thing in the morning and say, why did it make you so mad? Are they really that evil? Are they really, no, I don't think that they're, got their shit together. But, so in my story, and I'll add to my story, I worked real hard for this opportunity. And I put my name in. And as I put my name in, I had heard and learned that the hiring manager had somebody in mind before they even opened the posting. So the LDM in me says, well, Red, give it a run. They haven't seen you yet. But there was a part of me too that was like, well, is it even worth it? If they already got their superstar. So I went through the process, and as I told you, I didn't get picked, and I was mad because I had a great body of work. And in that next 2 days, as I was mad, the other side of the conversation said, was it the best interview you ever gave, Red? And you know what the answer is, guys? It was not the best. It was very good. I'm being honest. It was very good. It was not the best. But I was going up against somebody that had done this job already. And so I had to be honest with myself. And then I asked myself, well, why? And I knew. I felt like the decision was already made, and I did not kind of do those things that were required. And that was hard to say to myself. And so for a couple of more minutes there, I was like, well, Red, you know what you're talking about, But that's why I'm talking to us. I developed that process to give myself that time, because the clock is ticking. Back to what you said, Naima, you got to still think about moving. It doesn't feel good, I was crushed, but not moving, man, that scared me. That like, what if I just get so upset with that I say, screw it, y'all figure it out. I'll just sit over here on my corner seat, say hi to everybody, get a coffee, and so it was imperative that I had these self conversations. Does that make sense? All right. Anybody disagree? Because
No, the good thing about that, I
yeah.
mean, and for me, and looking at that is that, yeah, and that's a lot of the times where I sit there and I say, what is the sense of me applying for this?
Mm-hmm.
If they've already got an interim, they've already got somebody that's there, is also being able to put yourself out there, because now they're aware that you are looking or you would like to do something like this. So you could get an interim position at some So you never know. But I mean, it is hard though to get to, and that's my biggest issue, is getting to that point of trying to figure out what's good. I can easily try to figure out what's good for somebody else, but when it comes to me, I don't have that capability. I don't. I have a really hard time with it, and it takes a very long time.
Yeah, okay. You're saying all the right things.
Right.
She's like a half step ahead of me here. So I'm looking at our clock, and I want to bring up something else within the article. One of the 2 articles that I sent to you guys from liveabout.com. There's a section. There's 2 sections in there. One says "You matter." You guys remember that?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to read the article. I'm going to be honest.
I love that you took full responsibility for the fact you didn't do the
Right.
homework. Now,
But I still wanted to be here because I
but
wanted to go over it.
that's what we're built for. That's what we're built for. But you know what? We're going to talk about it. So we're talking about assuming full responsibility. We're talking about it, and we talk about this being a human thing, right? This humanity piece. So it's really imperative about how you connect to this entire process, right? Like connect. How do you almost imprint on the decision about getting really intimate with taking responsibility in the events in your life that either really are fantastic, yeah, I built that, or I didn't get that job, And if I'm being really honest with myself, I gave them everything they needed to say no to the best thing that was ever going to happen to them, right? So, um, how do you get there though? Because it's again so easy to say. And I believe this part in the article is well, then you got to get even deeper, looking deeper in, and you got to start coming to terms with the fact that you matter, right? You matter. The article says, live every day as if what you do matters because it does. Now, I can read the rest, but I want to kind of put this again. This is another red angle. So, this is why I say if you don't agree, you get the freedom to say, now hold on a minute. But a lot of times in a work environment, we come in as wonderful, capable, complex, and unique human beings, and we literally hand it over to the employer. Hope you like it, and I really hope that it fits. And I think that's where we lose ourselves. And then things happen to us, and it doesn't seem like it's fair, and so on and so forth. In order to kind of find your place in the responsibility cycle, you have to first kind of tell yourself and believe it when you say that you matter. What you do matters. In the very worst case scenario in this entire life, you go through it, and every day you do wonderful things, and you give of yourself, and you make lives better, and not a single person ever writes you a thank you note. Was it worth it?
Hmm.
We all agree it worth it. Why? Because it mattered. It was
Exactly.
it's who you are. So now I say this to you, that this is the tricky magic shit. We A lot of times the people that end up with those opportunities, Patricia, not every time, I don't want to put myself in a corner here. It's when you really come up against somebody who knows themselves. They know why they do what they do. They know why it matters. They're in touch with themselves. And we don't know how to describe it. We're just like, man, I get all goofy around Donna, right? Because she knows what she does and why it matters to her. She knows that every customer that she empathizes with is important to her as a person.
Hmm.
And so, in that sense, Donna's saying, I'm very interested in what you think of me, but you don't define me, right?
Mhm.
It's not disrespectful. I just happen to define myself, and it's very important. And I want each one of you, if you haven't given yourself some time to think about it, take some time to think about that, right? If you need a glass of wine, it's perfectly okay. But think about
I wish I
it.
could.
Well, right, or Sprite or whatever it is, ginger ale. Um, and then while you're doing that, there you go. The next part of that article said your thoughts matter. Your
Mhm.
thoughts matter. So remember, I was saying, hey, in that moment of where you're like in the grip of this event, I was like, you got to kind of in that moment say, why did you say that, Red? Um, why was it important for you to say you got screwed up, right? And it's the last time I want to talk to myself, but that's what I got to talk to myself is because I realized the power of unchecked thoughts. If you let the thoughts go along that line, this place will never ever respect me because they don't know what talent is or they don't appreciate whatever. You'll believe it. You're your biggest fan. You'll believe it. And at some point, you won't be aware of maybe how far you got from who you truly meant to be.
Right.
All right. So there's a lot of words in here, but you matter and live every day as if what you do matters because it does. Every choice, every action, that matters. Those choices, they matter. All
Hmm.
right. And then you got to start talking to yourself the way I would talk to you because I believe in every single one of you. And I feel that in this crazy world, it moves so fast, so much pressure and things going on that we kind of almost forget to tell ourselves, you're doing a pretty good job. You really are. And at some point, someone's going to kind of finally go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize just how much you've given But boy, if I waited for that, that's the tragedy. So I do myself a solid every day. I'm like, damn, you good, Red? You're really good. Even when I'm not. So what do you guys think of those two topics? It matters, what you think matters, and how it aligns with what we've been talking about.
With sports, you have that end game, whether you've won or lost, you give a high five to the other team.
Oh, yeah.
And reminded this watching my nieces and nephews play their soccer games this summer of, playing field hockey and different sports, and that enthusiasm of being able to look the other team in the eye, even when you lost, and give a high five and be like, good game, you played so well that I would love to beat you the next time we play you, like, or back too, and the challenge of I've got to step up my game. So the more that we can do that too is like that good job. It becomes, it's not just if you're not first, you're last. It's literally
Right.
that good job.
There's so much to that, and man, we should all, if you're all taking notes, I think that's a great thing to take notes. And you use sports ball, and good on you. But even in our world, the world that we live in today, it's all about competition, right?
Oh yeah.
And we can run the risk of the easiest thing is to say you are defined by your win-loss column. It's there. I understand it. But a loss is not a loss if what you gave was your all. And you can have fun with that. You can look someone dead in the eye and say, Miss Julie, I know you won, but it cost you a pretty penny because I was giving it everything I had.
You'll be sore tomorrow.
But that's the thing, right? That's the thing that we all have to do, both in our personal lives and our professional lives, because I think the numbers are you'll experience a lot more disappointments than you will the victories. The clearly defined victories, but you should not have that dictated to you. So you get to choose and say, in this event, in this endeavor, I did not achieve the objective, but I shined all the way through.
Right.
And there'll be times where you didn't shine. You are going to stumble. You're going to be incredibly human. Give yourself the 2-2-2 and get it going.
Yeah.
Right?
Pat yourself.
Yeah. You're like, you know what? I just found out that my cake is not as long. But I'm still gonna work on it, right? So I'm looking at our clock. To me, like we could go on and on and on about it because I think again, you can talk about it conceptually, but some of us might be somewhere within that shit happens cycle, and so it's still foreign. We're not comfortable. Um, like I don't believe in lying to yourself. So if you're feeling as if you got the short end of a deal, then there's a reason for it, and you have to give yourself the space, but rather than just make those statements where you don't answer your statement, get in the practice of talking to yourself like you would to all the people that you've helped in your current role. And I know every single person here has helped somebody, right? One person get through a tough challenge.
Oh yeah.
So talk to yourself in the same manner. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Any last questions, points, curiosity around this topic?
Mm.
Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. It was a good session.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it. That's why I recorded it.
You knew.
You can take tomorrow off and just play the video.
Yeah, you know what? That's what I'll do. They'll all get it. I'm like, hey, here you go. I'm still good. But I had to whine the whole night. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, to operating this program and Red taking responsibility of staying within my communication and the cadence of where I set these meetings, and that your guys' ability to still flex and be here and come to these conversations full of thoughts and questions and insights makes this everything that I had ever hoped it would be. And so for that, I thank you. Let's talk about how we always keep pushing, keep moving forward. So the next page in your playbook is, is always raise your standards.
Oh,
Yeah. So this one usually for us is kind of like a day in the life snapshot, right? We work in one of the top performing centers in the industry in which we work, and I think every one of us has been on both sides of a coaching desk, where we're either being asked to give our very best, or we're asking someone to give their very best. So I really look forward to that conversation as it pertains, though, to you and how you move through your career and where standards kind of come to play, right? What do they mean to you? Where do they show up? So start thinking about that. There are, in this particular one, there are 2 recommended challenges. There's an article, The Importance of Handling Standards, and then there's a YouTube, I think, TED Talk that I think is all of about 15, 17 minutes. So a little change up from all the reading that you've done. But other than that, if you guys don't have anything, I'm going to let you get back to your evenings. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon. I love you all.
we
All right,
appreciate you too.
bye.
Yes, we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you. Thank you. And have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.